Well, hello again. It's Lee Kreider here with the Ohio Ram Show, and we have some guests with us today who have just finished VRAW, and we're glad to have them with us. First of all, I want to introduce to you the second place woman finisher, Ginger Howell. Hello, Ginger. How are you?
Well, I'm slightly less sore than I was yesterday, but I'm very happy to have survived the race because there were some times in there where I wasn't sure I was going to.
And you're located where, Ginger?
I'm in Framingham, Massachusetts.
Okay, and let's tell everybody that we're talking to some of the VRAW finishers. If you're watching this on YouTube or Facebook, you can add a comment here and we can see and share them with you. So, Framingham, and so what did you think about virtual racing? Have you ever done anything like this before?
Actually, I did one other virtual ultra race, which is the only other ultra cycling race I've done. It was about 10 days beforehand, and it was the solitary confinement challenge. So that was a 40-minute ride every hour for 24 hours. And then the eliminator challenge at the end. So which Chris Calamano also did, actually. You have him on the show, but that was the longest bike ride I had done prior to this and my only experience with virtual racing.
Okay, and you have some other background in racing. Tell us about that real quickly.
So I'm a professional triathlete and I specialize in the Ironman distance. So 2.4-mile swim, 112-mile bike, and 26-mile run, which usually takes about 10 hours. I've been doing that since 2009, mostly as an age grouper. I turned professional 2 years ago. And that's really where my focus has been. I haven't done much stuff longer than 10 hours. So this was really an experiment. I had no idea how it was going to go. But speed has always been my weakness. Endurance has always been my strength. And ultra cycling was something I had thought about, and it was kind of on my bucket list. I wanted to do it at some point, but I was planning to focus on Ironman for several more years before trying it out. And with this year, COVID and quarantine and everything getting canceled, I saw this race and I was thinking, I was thinking about doing something like that 5 or 10 years down the road, but let's give it a try and see how it goes.
Okay, and I have to do a shout out here to my son Scott, who just popped in here. I think he lived either not close by Framingham at some time or the other. Didn't you not? Tell us, Scott. Scott is essentially a marathoner, lives out in Sunnyvale, California. So happy Father's Day, Scott. And so we're going to bring in Sabine Bird here. Sabine, you are the third woman finisher, and you're over there in Perth, Australia. That's a fur piece. I have called that the most remote city on Earth. It isn't close to anything, is it, Sabine?
No, we're not close to anything really, but we do have the technology, which is good.
Yeah, just like being around the corner here. Okay. Well, thanks, Scott. And I'm just looking at some other people who have popped in here. TK Sorrell. Well, he's a finisher. TK, hang around here a little bit. Maybe toward the end, I can get you a link and you could pop in here as well. John Bandy is there. He's out there on the course yet, I think. Mayank Tripathi, you're here. And Georgie Stoyshev, who I had on earlier today or last night, I guess, who finished VRAW here. So would you do a virtual race again, either one of you? And I'll bring Chris in on that.
I would definitely do a virtual race again. I mean, I think it was actually a great sort of gateway into ultra cycling. And I mean, there are a lot of, I mean, just the distance, the sheer distance of it was like 100% of what I was able to handle. Like, I really don't think I could have ridden any farther, but with the virtual format, I was able to put all of my energy into just going the distance. And there were so many aspects like dealing with drivers and potholes and weather and having a support crew and things that you didn't really have to think about. I mean, I had a table set up beside me with all my food on it. I mean, like everything's right there. You can have a pile of clothes next to you and just get off the bike and change into less sweaty clothes when you need to, and you don't have to like pull over and get your support crew to pull over. So in some ways it was a lot easier logistically doing a virtual race. Having done that, I would love to at some point try doing a real ultra cycling event that's outdoors on the road, because there's so many aspects that I just haven't experienced yet that I would need to put a lot of work and thought into, and I definitely want to do that. But I think that this was a really good way to take to experience it for the first time.
Okay, well, we're here with 3 VRAW finishers: Ginger Howell, the second woman to finish, and Sabine Bird, the third woman, and Chris Calamano. So, Chris, would you do a VRAW, or would you do a virtual race like this again?
So I'm actually the closest. I just finished a few hours ago, so right now it's kind of the last thing on my mind. But it was definitely interesting. The format of this riding inside your house was had its own challenges. I think more mentally. I think for me personally, finding that there were 83 different stages. In between the stages, I was coming off the bike a little bit more and taking more breaks, which wasn't necessarily a bad thing for me, because I still had the opportunity to go with my kids in between the rounds, and just really try to enjoy the entire experience while doing it from home. So, but would I do it again? Not anytime soon for that type of format, but definitely, I enjoy these types of courses.
Okay, we got a little glitch there somehow. We had a question from Georgie Stojov, who we had on earlier, finished. How did you deal with nutrition? What worked for you? What didn't? What's about your sleep strategy? Go ahead, since you're up here. Chris, tell us about that quickly.
Yeah, so my nutrition strategy went out the window pretty quickly, as always in these ultra races. But anything over 10 hours for me personally, I try to eat real food. I ate a lot of fruits and vegetables. My calories were avocado toast. I have mashed guacamole that I would constantly put on this bread and load up with olive oil. I ate some pizza, and as far as sleep, the first night I rode through, and then the second night I slept more than I wanted to, but I feel that I slept for 6 hours the second night, and woke up pretty refreshed, and when I look back on it, I'm glad I took that time. And then later on throughout the race, I realized I wasn't going to hit my target goal, so I slept for another 3 hours on Thursday night, and then from Friday into Saturday was that was it. I just rode through because I finished Saturday night, so Sunday morning.
Okay, we want to say a shout out to John Hoopengarner who's in here, Jimmy Brogdon, I believe it is. I've always had trouble with these names. So, Ginger, how did you handle nutrition, sleep, etc.?
So I also used the strategy of eating real food. I got some burritos at Trader Joe's. Like they have these quinoa burritos and also like chicken and pork burritos. And those were one of my staple foods during the event. I did meal prep for the entire week Monday night, so I made like half a dozen sandwiches. With like sandwich meats, like peanut butter and jelly, the works. So I had like my whole week's worth of food in the fridge, and I just had to go up and grab something out of the fridge. And I would usually have like several hours worth of food on the table beside me at a time. But I also ate a lot of honey stinger waffles and bars, which are one of my favorites. And I noticed my roommate had a box of ice cream sandwiches in the freezer. I was kind of craving those, so I ate most of them, and I should probably replace them.
Okay.
But as far as sleep, I slept about 90 minutes per night, but I timed it. So the first night I slept starting around like 3-ish, and then the second night I slept the same amount of time, so about 90 minutes, but a couple of hours earlier. And then by the third night I slept starting at, it was like 9:30 p.m. to 11. So I was sleeping 90 minutes a night, but I timed it so I was on more of like a 21-hour day schedule, and it was like more often than every 24 hours. That wasn't entirely thought out from the beginning. That was my plan, was basically go until I feel like I can't survive any longer without sleep, and then sleep, and that's about how it worked.
Well, Sabine, before you answer, I forgot to say when we were on air that you have been one of our field reporters, Revolve 24, I think some other things, and I hope that we'll be seeing you doing something like that again. What about your nutrition, sleep patterns?
Well, I'm chronically the worst person to ask this question because A, my plans never work out either, and B, I've been traditionally quite horrible with food, but I've learned a lot in the meantime. So in the first few hours, I was quite focused on carbs because the initial pace was quite fast, and I wanted to have quick access to sugar and simple sugars and carbs and stuff. But as the hours went on, and especially the days, I wanted to make sure that my body doesn't start muscle wasting, and I had more protein intake and also some more fat intake, because as the pace went down, you don't really need carbs anymore so much, and then I can just restock on a bit more substantial stuff. And I also then shifted over to proper food. Rice and meatballs are my favorite, or pizza. But they were probably my staple foods. Sandwiches are always a good idea, but I get sick of foods quite quickly, so I always need a whole range, like a supermarket chain. I've always had heaps of different things to choose from, and in the end I pick 3. But it always works out somehow. It's very hard to keep the calories up. We really underestimate how many we use up, and we're simply not able to refuel properly and accordingly. So I just go with quick, short, sharp, high, rich foods that don't take much chewing.
Well, before we get to Mayank's question, I have one. Did any of you use any changes in the lighting during the day, night, what have you, to kind of get a rotation, or did you just kind of keep the lights on all the time? Lights on all the time.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, I was wondering about
like lights full blast the whole time to avoid the eyes.
Okay, because I know. Go ahead.
Oh, I actually had the lights off during the night in the basement, so I just had the light from the Apple TV screen. Mostly because there are like small windows in the basement, but that way I could, like, if I wanted to get off the bike and like put on anti-chafe cream or change my shorts or like lay on the floor and massage my legs for 5 minutes. I mean, I would like, I don't know, I could just like do that beside the bike and I didn't have to, I mean, if somebody was outside, they weren't going to see me changing clothes because there aren't curtains on the basement windows. But also, I mean, I felt like it sort of, it's nice to, have darkness at night and light in the daytime. And it doesn't mess up your circadian rhythms quite as much if you actually let it be dark at night.
Yeah, well, I prompted because I remember a comment that Sabine made to me once before, and I think a lot of other cyclists are somewhat the same, that need to dig yourself out of a hole during the middle of the night, and how you felt good about it. A lot of people, out on the road, it's that coming of the light and the sun up in the morning that is a very stimulus, and that was kind of missing here, except for maybe Ginger. Well, Mayank asks, what was your off the saddle time, more or less, in a virtual format compared to outdoor race? Any of you?
Yeah. I was just going to say my saddle time when I was looking at it, because I was just uploading everything to Strava, and it would tell you your actual ride time. I rode for 78 hours, which means I was off the bike for 35 hours. And I remember looking at the statistics early on and thinking, there's no way I've been off the bike for a long time. But these, breaks in between the rounds would just really add up pretty quickly. Whether or not I was just procrastinating to start the next one was probably my worst issue. But if I didn't have these statistics, I would have said that I was on the bike for 90% of the time, but I clearly wasn't. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I spend more time on the bike now than I would on the road. I feel like the breaks are easier to coordinate because you don't have to reshuffle people and cars and car parks. I feel like I definitely spent more time on the bike, but I haven't checked the stats, I must say.
Fred talks about that, finding an excuse to get off the bike. Shorts don't fit right. I've got a sore spot on my leg. Any kind of excuse to get off this bike, and he talks about the resistance of it. Did you have a lot of struggle to stay on that bike and not get off?
No, I personally quite enjoyed it. I was actually looking forward to it. I was tired, but it's easier to fall asleep on a stationary bike than on the road. So
that's for sure.
It was okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was just the ease. It was just the ease that the whole thing. I mean, it was hard. The ride itself was incredibly hard, but it was easy to access it all, and you made your decision on your own whether you wanted to get off or not. Whereas on a road, normally your team makes a decision for you.
Okay. Scott asks, what type of trainers did everyone use?
Kicker, Wahoo.
I used a Wahoo kicker, and my ball bearing busted on day 2, and I went back and forth with Wahoo support, and they said they're sending me a replacement one, but it didn't impact anything. It just sounded like I had an airliner in my house. So other than, and that noise probably kept me awake, so it was probably a good thing.
Okay. How about you, Sabine?
I used a Sorry trainer.
Okay. I was talking to Keith Savage in Hong Kong this morning, and he had a trainer that actually allowed him to coast. How about any of you? Did you have that? I know the big complaint is that you don't get a chance to coast after you've climbed a hill. Did any of you have a trainer that would actually coast? And he said he could get off the bike and his would keep right on running.
Yeah, there were only a few descents where you could coast. Yeah, but overall, you kept the pedal strokes up just to increase the speed. But yeah, it's possible.
I don't remember any descent in that race.
Yeah, I think the trainer lets you coast, but it's more a matter of the course wouldn't let you coast. I mean, if you're
Yeah.
riding Zwift, if you go up the Alp, then you get to turn around and you go back down the Alp and you get 8 more miles without any pedaling. Here, like you get to the top of the mountain and you end the ride, no downhill in there, and then you start the next stage and it's another ginormous mountain. So no coasting there. But when we did have the like downhills, which were never super long. I mean, but if you have like rolling hills with like a minute, I deliberately, if we had a downhill, I did not pedal on it for the entire race. At the beginning, it was like energy conservation. I've never biked anywhere near this far. I need to like conserve my energy in every possible way. So like any time that it was possible to not pedal on a downhill, I did not pedal on that downhill. In the beginning and in the middle of the race, it was because I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to finish. And at the end of the race, it was literally because I wasn't sure I could take another pedal stroke. And even on the once we got to the last couple of 100 miles, even on the flats, or if you had like a false flat, I would take like a couple of pedal strokes and then coast for a few seconds, take a couple of pedal strokes, coast for a few seconds. Like my legs had just had it, and I was like putting as little energy into it as possible, just in an attempt to survive.
Okay, well, I just want to shout out to Chris O'Keefe. Hi, Chris, how are you? And Debbie Haas-Williams. Debbie and I go back great many years up to Findlay, Ohio, where we were part of a little tiny club, and she is a Ram veteran. Hi, Debbie. Glad to see you here. Hey, Scott wanted to know what you're using Zwift. Are you, all of you? I don't know how the technology connects.
It was all run by Full Gas, which
Okay.
is run by Australians.
Their system.
Yeah.
Okay. Weight. Did any of you have weight problems? Did you weigh? How would that go?
So we had to weigh in beforehand, and we're supposed to email it in. So I weigh in quite often, and it's funny, I weighed in at the very end when I was done at 3:30 in the morning my time, Eastern Standard, and my weight was a pound lighter, which made me feel good that I've been staying hydrated and ate everything in the entire house.
Okay.
We had to weigh in. That's why I sent in my weigh-in video the night before, which it was actually spot on. Like when we entered our weight, I put 120, and I mean, it usually ranges like anywhere from about 116, 117 to 121. And then when I weighed in, it happened to be exactly 120.0, which is perfect. And then they said that we could send in a separate weight each day if we wanted to. So if you lose 2 pounds, then you're 2 pounds lighter. I kind of figured that wasn't worth the effort during the race. But after the race, I weighed myself again just out of curiosity, and I lost 6 pounds in 4 days.
Wow.
Yeah. I just know that a couple people have reported some weight losses. They pretty significant because they weren't hydrating properly. Well, listen, we got to get out of here because the George and Rick show starts here before long. Got George Thomas and Rick Bothling and their daily report. We don't want to miss that, or at least I don't. And so we want to thank all of you. Sabine, thank you for staying up late tonight. It's up there in Perth, Australia. We're exactly 12 hours apart. That makes it easy for me to calculate. Thank you, Heather. What would I call you, Heather? I don't know. Thank you, Ginger. Good to meet you for the first time. And the same for Chris. We hope this isn't the last time we see you around here or see you on the show. So good luck and we'll be watching the leaderboards. Georgie wants to say a congratulations here. I'll let him do that before we sign off. And with that, we're gonna get out of here.
Congratulations,
Thank you.
ladies, and thank you so much.
Yeah, congratulations to both of you guys. It was amazing doing this. I want to thank my sponsors, N+1 Cyclery and Bianchi, and I want to thank the organizers of the event, and thank you so much for having us on the show.
Glad to
Likewise.
do that. Any other sponsors that need to be mentioned here?
It's all good. I go online and do it there.
Okay, very
You
well.
did really well. You did really well, guys. Seriously.
You can energy. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
See ya.
Thank you, everybody. And we want to thank all of you for watching another episode of the Ohio Ram Show. And you can see that online at ohioramshow.com. So with that, we'll say goodbye.
This is Gregory Zuber, thanking you for watching and sharing.